Okay, this video is Dr. Rogers' mukbang, Last Supper. It's the Last Supper because it's the last time I'm eating dinner in this house. I have to move out. You've heard that story before. It was just an opportunity to give you a sense of what I typically eat. So a lot of times I start the meal with rice and beans and potatoes. I mix them all together, most commonly lentils. These are still a little bit hot. So, I'll eat some of the potatoes, for example. These are just your typical white potatoes. And I like white potatoes. They're only 1% of calories from fat, so you eat a lot of these, you'll be pretty skinny. I weigh 160 pounds. I'm 5'9". That's the same thing I weighed when I was in high school. In college, I was more muscular as a wrestler. But it tastes good. The rice and the beans and potatoes, they all go well together. I always eat organic. I like the, white potatoes. Real good with the rice and beans. I get, organic rice, white rice, grown in California or somewhere else where they didn't used to grow cotton, because if they used to grow cotton, then they're going to have had a problem with boll weevil insects like southeastern United States, whereby they sprayed a lot of arsenic pesticides on them, and it takes many decades to come out of the soil. But even some of the rice from other areas had a problem with arsenic because the chicken farmers had intestinal parasites, so they put arsenic antibiotics into the chicken, and then they sold the chicken feces to the organic farmers. So there's a little bit even in other rice, but it's more of a problem than other foods. I think apples had a problem with that, but still, it's not that big of a problem. I'll eat rice as much as 5 times a week. I like rice. So anyways, white potatoes and beans. Lentils only have 3% of calories from fat. They're the lowest fat bean. Regular potatoes and sweet potatoes have only 1% of calories from fat. So people who eat a lot of potatoes, white rice, and beans. People say, well, should you eat brown rice? The reason I don't eat brown rice is a lot more fat in its outer surface, such that it's more prone to rancidity, doesn't store as well. Brown rice also tends to contain more arsenic in its outer periphery. When you move when you change it, you polish the rice, so to speak, you get rid of a lot of the arsenic. I always rinse it twice. Cook it in reverse osmosis water. Anyways, lentils are good. There's different types of lentils. I can eat a lot of the stuff. It's great. Tastes best the first 2 days, especially the first day. And then I also got sweet potatoes here, and sweet potatoes are great. If I'm eating sweet potatoes, I eat them all the same day because they don't taste good the next day. They don't taste anywhere near as good as they do the first day. So I love sweet potatoes. I could eat a whole giant container of them. I'll often read scientific, research papers, or I'll watch videos while I'm eating. In the past, if I was home alone, I would walk around listening to an audiobook when I eat. When there's people home, I'll talk to them, while I'm eating, but a lot of times, people eat by themselves. Everybody's on a different schedule with school and jobs. But I love sweet potatoes. I think sweet potatoes are the best food in the world. The reason why I think a sweet potato is better than a white potato is a white potato's got like twice as much protein. It's got about 9%, 8 to 9% protein, whereas sweet potato only has 4.5% protein. You want your protein intake to be like as low as possible. All those people who tell you need more, I think they're BSing you. McDougall went through all that stuff, like human breast milk only has about 5 or 6% protein, depending on which paper you read. And so it's impossible. And Pritikin agrees with that. It's impossible to be too low in protein. Okay? There's no way you're going to eat a diet that's too low in protein. So I forget about that one. Okay? Probably the lowest thing in protein would be like fruits. Fruits are really low in protein. I do think fruits are pretty good natural food for us to eat. Why do we have color vision? So we could see when fruits are ripe. I think we sort of evolved to eat fruits. So I think they're better. And I think McDougall exaggerates the problems with fruits. Don't get me wrong. Starches do satisfy your hunger better than fruits do. And when you're trying to lose weight, you might want to cut down on the fruits because you can keep on eating fruits. There's a lot of fructose in them. The glucose goes right into your blood. So it raises your blood glucose level. That's part of satisfying hunger. The starch is low caloric density, stretches your stomach, early satisfaction, hunger. Then it goes into your blood. The glucose, as it's absorbed, satisfies your hunger. So the late onset, prolonged satisfaction, hunger. Whereas the fruit, a lot of its fructose goes right to the liver. Doesn't have as much of a satisfying hunger effect. So it's easy to overeat fruits. I usually eat the starch first. And when I'm eating the starch, it'll fill me up, and I can't eat anymore. I'll be done. And even though after I'm done, I couldn't take another bite of starch, I could still eat a whole bunch of stuff. So like here's blueberries. This happens to me all the time. I'll fill myself up with starch where I couldn't have another bite, and I still got room for another 24 to 48 ounces of blueberries. I really like the blueberries. I think it's probably the best fruit because it's not that sweet, but it still tastes good. It's loaded with antioxidants. Because it's not that sweet, it doesn't cause you problems with your teeth, doesn't cause you problems with rebound hypoglycemia in terms of getting cavities. But you know what you got to watch out for blueberries. Because they're so dark, they'll stain your teeth dark. So you want to rinse your teeth off after you're done eating. I got reverse osmosis water here. I usually just rinse my teeth off, drink a tiny bit. I don't want to drink too much if I'm eating at night, which I usually do. Because if you hydrate too much, and there's plenty of fluid in all these plant foods tend to be pretty hydrating. I don't want to be waking up to void too much, you know? So, this is a pretty standard meal for me. If I want to have a fruit, other fruit I like is I have bananas. I only eat organic bananas. I'll look at the banana too. So when I open up the banana, I want to make sure it's nice and soft. This one feels nice and soft. If the banana was too stiff, I would assume that oatmeal had been sprayed on it. I wouldn't eat it. That's that new antifungal preservative. Antifungal means anti-mold. Food companies don't want mold growing in their food because it will get returned to them. So you put antifungals on there, it stays on the shelf longer in a relatively fresh appearing way. But mold inhibitors, they're very routinely fungal inhibitors. I mean, they're very routinely mitochondria inhibitors. So I don't want that. Anything that's a mitochondria inhibitor is, you know, potentially an excitotoxin because you need to make a lot of ATP to pump the calcium out of your cytoplasm in your brain. So banana is good. So I'm not going to eat anything that's a mitochondria inhibitor if I can avoid it. That's another reason why I won't eat any non-organic corn. Because, you know, atrazine's sprayed on it. Atrazine's a mitochondria inhibitor. So that means it's an excitotoxin. I don't want that. It's also estrogenic. You know, that's the one that turns the male frog into the female frog. So that's why I'll never eat anything with high fructose corn syrup in it. I would never eat non-organic corn. None of that stuff. I don't eat soy, especially non-organic soy. It's going to have glyphosate, glycine phosphate. Glycine's a coincident activator of the NMDA receptor for glutamate, meaning that it's an excitotoxin. So I don't eat that crap. You can see how a regular person is predisposed to cerebral excitotoxicity, overactivation in neurons that can make them anxious, for example, or insomnia. MSG and MFG are excitotoxins, okay? Glyphosate, glycine phosphate, excitotoxin, okay? Mitochondrial inhibitors have an excitotoxin effect, like the atrazine. And the person might be on their cell phone, that EMF opens up voltage-gated calcium channels. So now you got a whole bunch of things overstimulating it. A lot of the young people are real anxious. I think that's why. They're eating all this processed food loaded with excitotoxin, talking up their cell phone. Then they're drinking tap water. Tap water typically has, fluoride in there, which is toxic to their brain cells. And it's also got aluminum in there. Aluminum forms complexes with the fluoride. Increases blood-brain barrier permeability. Traversal of the blood-brain barrier. And, you know, in general, fluoride's added to lots of medicines to increase blood-brain barrier traversal. So the net effect is more toxins getting into your brain, and your important neurons are overstimulated with these excitotoxins and mitochondria inhibitors. And then they eat a high-fat meal, so they're screwing their brain, you know. Whereas all this stuff, you know, my sweet potatoes are 1% fat. That's perfect for blood flow. Regular potatoes, 1% fat. The lentils, 1% fat. The rice, 1% fat. They're a really low-fat meal. Off the top of my head, I forgot the percentage of fat in blueberries, but it's quite low. I don't remember what it is. I'll just guess off the top of my head around 5% or something, which is still really low. You want to definitely be below 15%. I would actually recommend if you can be below 10%, especially if you ever have any cardiac history, you're over 50, you're over 45 even. So this stuff all tastes really good. Also, I'll show you what I did earlier in the day. I had some of this beet juice. I was just thirsty. You know, gave me a little boost of energy. I guzzled down 32 ounces of this stuff. Any of them are probably fine. What I like about beet juice is it gives you an energy boost, but it's not like caffeine. Caffeine will cause insomnia. Beet juice, you get the energy boost. Hydration in general gives you an energy boost. It bumps up your blood sugar for a little while. It's also got a lot of potassium, vasodilator. So that's good for you. I always look at my potatoes and everything else I eat. If there's anything funny looking in it, I don't eat that part. I'll spit that out. What else could I tell you? So yeah, this is my mukbang meal. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, blueberries, bananas. I eat an oatmeal diet. That's one meal a day. I just do it because it's convenient. And it's basically based on the idea of the Roman soldier diet. Roman soldiers, they would be busy all day long. And then at night, you know, make a fire, eat the big dinner, and go to sleep, and then work all day long the next day. This is pretty much what I do. I don't like to eat in the morning because that's brain time. You know, your glymphatic system cleans your brain overnight. So while your brain's getting cleaned overnight, then you wake up in the morning, you're the smartest you're ever going to be. So you want to do your brain work. You know, plus if I have to go to work, which I often do, then I want to get extra sleep. I don't want to spend my morning having to eat before I go to work. All that stuff about breakfast, the most important meal, that came from the breakfast companies. So they're using it as an advertisement to sell more breakfast foods. You normally get a boost of cortisol goes up in the morning when you wake up. So you don't need to eat. You can ask lots of people, they'll tell you the same thing. They don't feel like they need to eat in the morning. My energy is really good. I can usually do good intellectual work until like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes even beyond that, depending. And sometimes if it gets real busy and I'm tired, I'll guzzle down some beet juice for extra energy. I call that my caffeine substitute. And I think it's much better than caffeine because it gives me a good energy boost. But again, it doesn't cause insomnia. And it doesn't cause addiction or any of those other problems. I also like beet juice before I'm going to lift weights. If I'm going to go for personal best, like on high rep squats. If I'm going to give a lecture more than a half hour long, I know if I have beet juice on board and I'm well hydrated, I get a big increased energy. And I've given a lot of lectures that are real long, 2 hours long. I know the words come faster if I got beet juice on board, you know, in my blood, floating through my blood. I just find the words faster. There's an old saying, I think it was Bill McGowan who I first heard said it. I'm not sure about that, but he said, hydrate before you orate, and I think that's good advice. I just want to hydrate with beet juice and water. I chase it down with water. You don't want to use milk because milk thickens your mucus secretions. That'll interfere with your articulation if you're giving a talk, but beet juice followed by water is perfect. That's the best thing for giving talk. I've given thousands and thousands of lectures, so I've tested out everything I could. And that's what works the best for me. Probably for everybody. Okay. Now I think I'm going to have some more of these white potatoes and the rice and beans. I often will eat the white potatoes and the rice and beans first. It's almost a little plain, but it's good. The potatoes, I think, they're real good, but the beans, I think, contribute to long-term satiety. With the beans, I don't get hungry at all the next day. I don't get hungry the next day anyways, but the glycogen in your liver is very good at maintaining blood glucose levels for 48 hours. And, you know, the more time goes by, the more the percentage of that is produced by gluconeogenesis. You know, let's say you can take amino acids or other substrates, glycerol and whatnot, and you can make glucose. So what I'm trying to say is it's very easy for your body to maintain a normal blood glucose level, typically for 48 hours. So to just eat OMAD diet, 1 meal a day, and just eat dinner, it's easy to do. I've done it every day for many years, and it works well. Because I work real intensely. It's a pretty routine thing for me. Let's say a routine day. I do 2 biopsies, and then I'll read, let's say, another 60, 70 films. And then I'll have people coming by for consultations with me on the computer in person all day. That's a pretty typical day for me. So that's a lot of work. So what I'm basically saying is I need a lot of energy. Plus, I do things like I have to work up on a high floor in a big building. Let's say I have to go to 10th floor. I always go fast up the stairs, you know, to get a workout from it. When you park your car, I park my car far, so I get a lot of work. And then, like, especially at the end of the day when I'm walking to my car, I walk fast just to make myself walk fast. I put an extra heavy book in my backpack, so I'm always, in a sense, doing like a bear walk or something. I'm carrying extra weight on myself intentionally to get a little more exercise out of it. So I'm real into how can I get the most out of my time. Okay, another thing in my diet here is I got a salad here. I get this from Earthbound Farms, and I like Earthbound Farms. They claim they don't put any appeal or other crap on there. I always get organic. I always rinse it off. McDougall recommends eat 90, so that'd be 5 and 4, 90% of your calories from starch. He says 5% from fruits, 5% from veggies. In my opinion, that's good advice for an old person who's sick and needs to get better fast. They don't have to think about anything else. But I think if you're younger and you're healthy and you exercise more, there's nothing wrong with eating, 30 or 40% of your calories from fruits. I love fruits. Like I said, I'm a skinny guy. I'm totally skinny. My ex-wife used to call me the mosquito because I'm so skinny compared to her. It's not even funny. Like I said, I weigh the same thing I weighed in high school. And I'm all muscle. I'm all strong. I look real strong in the weight room. I squat 185 for 50 reps. Pretty easily. So let's see, what else? So like I said, for a young person, when I say young, I mean middle-aged person. Pretty easy for them to eat 30-40% of calories, 30-40% of their calories from fruits. And if they feel good and they're fit, their energy level is good, and it's good. That's pretty much all the food items I have. I think you can see the rationale of it, though. Everything is plant-based. I'm 100% vegan. I'm 100% whole foods. I only eat whole foods. I don't eat anything with more than one ingredient, because if there's a second ingredient, they can put MSG in there, monosodium glutamate or MFG, manufacturer-free glutamate. They can add stuff to it without even telling you. When I used to eat lunch more often, I used to eat more oatmeal. I sometimes eat oatmeal, but I don't like to eat oatmeal at night, because oatmeal is a pretty wet food, and I'm more likely to have to wake up the voids. That's why I don't like eating oatmeal at night. But it's a good food. It's a little higher in fat. It's probably about 16% fat. That's still pretty low. If you look at animal foods, I look at salmon. Salmon is a pretty prototype example. 50% fat and 50% protein. There's no There's no carbohydrate in animal foods except, milk's got a little bit from the lactose. But you see what I'm saying? Salmon's 50-50, and, idiots will tell you that that's good. That's terrible. 50% animal protein? That's awful. 50% fat? That's awful. I want to end up like 80-10-10 or better, meaning that 80% of my calories at least in the ballpark from carbohydrate, about 10% from protein, about 10% from fat. I'm actually lower than that. 5% of calories from fat. Off the top of my head, I'm just going to guess it's about 5%. My protein, is right around 10%, maybe 11%. The beans are the main thing that gets the protein higher. I'm totally healthy with no medical problems, but if I had a medical problem, like let's say I had cancer or something, I would probably not eat beans, or certainly not eat them too much, just because they're so high in protein. Beans are, in general, you can think of them as being about 30% of calories from protein. So that's pretty high. Everything else is much lower. Like I said, the potatoes is about 8 or 9%. The sweet potatoes are about 4.5% of calories from protein. And fruit in general is real low in protein. Fruit overall is probably like the lowest of the plant foods. I don't really eat much grains. I don't eat wheat. I like quinoa. I'll eat quinoa, if I had lunch. In a perfect world, I wouldn't mind eating earlier. But after I eat, the reason I don't eat, when I'm at work, I'm too busy. When I have the day off, I usually can go real strong on writing a book chapter, or making videos. Usually I'm working on something for a book, something complex. I always do the difficult thing in the morning. I'm usually pretty mentally strong till about 3 in the afternoon. Then I start getting tired. I take breaks periodically, do the laundry, something like that, go for a walk. But I don't want to eat any big meal because I know from experience, especially if I'm trying to write a book chapter, which I often am, then I don't want, my IQ drops about 30 points. I can no longer do complex work. So I don't like to eat early in the day. But at 3 o'clock I could have a big meal. The main thing I would do if I'm going to have a big lunch would be, let's say I have a lunch at 2 o'clock. I eat a big lunch. Then I would take a nap. And then I would lift weights later in the day, because that makes you strong. The strongest you get is you sleep a lot the night before. You don't do anything the 2 days before. You sleep a lot the night before. Then you have a lunch. Then you take a nap. Then you guzzle down a beet juice, 2 hours before. And man, you'll be strong as a bull. You'll be as strong as you get. Go for your personal best record that day. That's how you peak. I also know from giving lots of talks, they also say, a hungry dog fights best. My wrestling coach used to tell me that. And what I mean by that is, all I want is the beet juice and some water on board. I don't want a whole bunch of food going through my gut. I just know from experience, I'm smarter and mentally faster. It's okay to have a little more food going through your gut when you're lifting weights, but when I'm giving a talk, I don't want nothing on board. Like, let's say it's a noon talk. I won't eat anything in the morning. 2 hours before, I'll guzzle down the beet juice, chase it down with 12 ounces of water. And then I'm really ready to have a great talk. I finish off all the bananas, and that tends to be what happens with bananas. Bananas taste so good. It's the old, seafood diet. Whatever I see of bananas, I just eat all of them. I don't always have bananas, but I like them when they're around. Let's see, I'll have a little more, I'll have a little salad there. Salad kind of cleans your teeth off after you eat the banana. You get a lot of stuff from the salad. There's a lot of nutrients in there. You get, precursors for nitric oxide from the nitrates. You get a whole bunch of other little precursor things that you need. We're designed to eat a lot of salad. Like Burkett said, he thinks we used to eat 100 grams a day of fiber. The average American's only eating like around less than 10. At a minimum, you probably want to get about 50 grams of fiber. A lot of studies suggest that blueberries, one of the best things for the brain, keep you smart. I'm 60. I pretty easily, sometimes I'll write, even do the hard part of my book. When I'm trying to crank out a chapter, I will crank out a. I'll go hard until 5 o'clock. What I mean by go hard is, I mean, I'm working on a new chapter, or you can't BS around. The reason I do that is, a lot of times when I'm writing a book, I have to finish that book by a certain time. I'm under very intense deadlines because I know I'll have a month where I got a couple extra days off and I got to crank it out. Like what was happening to me most recently was, because I'm getting divorced, my stupid wife, she's so, she's actually staying away from my house for a couple of months because she knows if she's around me, she's going to want to be back with me, okay? She knows it. She gets herself talked up, with her feminist girlfriend. Oh, he called you fat. Oh, I would divorce his ass. And so anyways, that's why I call this the Last Supper, because I'm moving out tomorrow. But anyways, blueberries, though, they're thought to really be good for the brain. And what I'm trying to say is, I know my cognition's good because I challenge the crap out of it. I challenge myself physically and I challenge myself intellectually all the time. And the relevance of that is, if I were to have a drop in productivity and ability, I would notice it pretty fast. So what I'm saying is, you want to be able to keep track of it. That way you can know, you could judge. Whereas most doctors I know, they've lost a step by the time they're in their 50s, and especially by the time they're in their 60s. They're mentally not what they used to be. Whereas if you eat this, low-fat vegan diet, you stay smart and clear probably, all the way up till pretty much towards the end. Physically, you're going to age more than you are going to mentally. One of the nice things, though, about the brain is you can keep on getting smarter as you get older. If you're still reading a lot, doing intellectually challenging things, have some intellectually good conversations during the daytime, you can maintain a lot of smarts as you get older. You can keep on developing your vocabulary. An old dog can learn new tricks. You can keep on learning new knowledge. So your brain can age really well. Having an educated, curious brain is one of the most enjoyable things of life. Like Aristotle had said, philosophy and reading and conversation, intellectual conversation, is the greatest of all pleasures, because unlike the other pleasures, it does not wax and wane. Yeah, like SEX, Making the Two-Back Beast. A lot of fun, but it doesn't last very long. Where you can read and think and converse and enjoy these things all day long. So, that's good. So, blueberries are high in fiber, not too sweet, low in protein. They're really high in potassium. You want to be at least 5-to-1 potassium, and I'm probably like 20-to-1. Like, let's look at this beet juice. It's got sodium 95, we'll call it 100 milligrams per serving. It's got potassium 700, so it's 7-to-1 more potassium. That's good. You always want to be at least 5-to-1. And the blueberries, I don't remember what the numbers are, but I should have brought the wrapper with me. But it's something like that. It's even more higher ratio of potassium to sodium. I think our ancestors ate 20 times more potassium and sodium. Whereas the average American, they flipped it. They're eating like 10 times as much sodium as potassium. Totally screwed up. Dennis Burkitt said we're the only animal that eats more sodium than potassium. The standard American diet. So, I think the net result is I'm probably about 85% carbohydrate, 10% protein, 5% fat. I like it. That's been working for me for many years. Trying to think if I got anything else to tell you. At the end of the meal, I'll rinse my teeth off with this. I always floss and do those little interdental brushes at night because your saliva production decreases at night. So you always want your teeth well clean when you go to sleep because you're going to have less saliva. You're more prone to forming cavities at night. My lighting was kind of screwed up on this video. I can't get the lighting right because I have to just turn them off and turn them back on again because I was fiddling around with them as I was setting up the meal. And I somehow screwed it up, and I don't want to mess around too much. I got food on my hands. All right, so I'm trying to think if I got anything else to tell you. So we went through the fiber. I got tons of fiber in this meal, tons of potassium, plenty of nitrates with the salad. I I get all the nutrients. I don't take any supplements other than methylcobalamin and B12. I get the brand with the fewest number of ingredients. You got to watch out. A lot of brands have cyanocobalamin. You don't want that because cyano can accumulate in your body, and you know what that is. A lot of brands have stevia. You don't want stevia. Stevia causes infertility. In general, if you're not careful about what you're eating, food can sterilize you. You know, stevia causes decreased fertility. Fluoride causes decreased fertility in the tap water. Aluminum causes decreased fertility. Soy causes decreased fertility. Atrazine causes decreased fertility. So it's almost like the darn diet's designed to sterilize people. You know, anything subsidized usually is going to cause fertility, decreased fertility. Yeah, I'm sure that's an accident. Let's see. Well, that's kind of what you want. Like I said, the starch produces this clear, it's like a slow-release energy pill as the fibers peeled off from the food, released into your blood, maintains a normal blood glucose level a prolonged amount of time. You're in the zone. Eating once a day is convenient. That's why I do it. Because if I ate twice a day, I'd have to spend more time preparing the food, more time eating the food. I don't want to eat at work. I want to just get my work done fast and go home. So it works well. All right, well, that's about all I got to say. This is a pretty typical dinner for me. I hope that was useful to you. If you got any questions, please put a question in the comments, and I'll try to get to it. All right, well, thanks everybody. Nice chatting with you. Nice having dinner with you.